Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss the issues of what's holding our communities back and how we solve these issues. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Mr. Ahmad Austin. Born and raised in Decatur, Georgia, Ahmad Austin is a 20-year cybersecurity consultant by trade. His information technology journey began in the United States Air Force. After separating from the Air Force in 2007, he began working as a military contractor. As his exposure to knowledge increased, so did his vision and desire to provide security services as an entrepreneur. With that vision, he founded a cybersecurity company, CY3. Since the inception of CY3, Ahmad has provided cybersecurity consulting services for Air Force and Navy organizations, department stores, hospitals, and Alabama and Georgia state agencies, to name a few. He also served as an adjunct professor and also held weekly mentoring sessions for adults interested in learning and applying information security principles. With all that said, his love for Decatur his love for Decatur and the people that reside in it comes first. He has been fortunate to have been allotted the opportunity to participate in the mentoring cybersecurity development of the students at the elementary school that he attended as a child, Chapel Hill Elementary. He is in process of developing an academy to build the next generation of cybersecurity professionals, starting with the students of Chapel Hill. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ahmad Austin. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thank you, sir. That was a wonderful introduction. I appreciate you. Too kind.
Well, excuse me here. I forgot to put my earbuds in.
Oh, no worries.
Did you hear? I guess everything that I read, or could you hear me at all?
Oh, no, no, I heard you loud and clear. No, that's what I said. Thank you for that introduction. You're too kind. How you
Is
doing
there
this evening?
is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, you pretty much covered it. I mean, when I was listening to you give that introduction, I was thinking about it, like listening to it, like, oh, that's me. But, towards the end, you really described, I guess, what, I feel that I represent. Because we're like, we can think about we have our own perception of ourselves,
Mhm.
and then we have how other people perceive us, and at the end of the day, the way I look at myself is I'm a black man first from Decatur, and that's my passion is just like as mentioned in the introduction, Decatur and the people that reside in it.
So, just at the end, the one thing that was really captivating for me is I thought about the part where which mentioned the mentorship for the young kids. So, tell us, what was the passion behind that?
Huh. I'm glad you asked that question, Charles. So first of all, I say this: when I got into the IT career field in the military, you know, I didn't know how to copy and paste. Just
Hmm.
to put that in perspective, I think everybody that's listening knows how to copy and paste. I did not know how to do that, so I just fell into the IT career field because my general test scores in the Air Force were at a certain level. So it was a hard, especially the first 2 years. It was a hard journey, and I remember I said to myself, if I ever learn this, this is back in 03. If I ever learn this, I'm never going to leave anybody behind. And I thankfully I did learn it and began to excel. And even when I was in the military, still I had a goal in mind. I said, when I get out the military, I'm gonna come back to Decatur. And at the time, this was like '06, so it's before like cloud and all this technology that we have available. I said I'm gonna open up a storefront. Might not be anything big, but I'm gonna teach the youth of Decatur, South DeKalb County, IT and cybersecurity principles, because I feel like it's an excellent way to make a living, even if you're even if you don't love technology, you can be involved in it from a program management standpoint. You know, contract acquisitions. There's so many different avenues you can go, and even at the starting pay scale, you know, it's just say 40, 50, 40 to 55,000. I mean, that's still a decent living, and that's just starting out. So, you know, I feel like it's just my passion to teach that to the youth. And one thing I want to say, and tell me if I'm going too long with this answer, Charles. One thing I want to say, I was talking to a good friend and business partner, Omar Ali, about this, is that Black folks have, at least I can speak for like where was raised and where many people, many Black communities, you know, you have to have a sense of awareness. Uh, you investigate. You don't just dive into something without analyzing the risk. I mean, you do this on the fly a lot of times based on your previous experiences, based on the information that you have, and you make decisions. And after you make those decisions, whether you're going to proceed or not, whether that's with a relationship or going into a building, you still constantly reanalyze the risk of the decision that you make. This is something that like a lot of Black folks inherently have have in them based on the environments that we've grown up in from childhood. What I just described, Charles, is those are key attributes to being a cybersecurity professional. So, like my message to to Black people that listen to me is that we inherently have the ability, the attributes to be superb cybersecurity professionals. Now it's just about applying the principles and knowledge on top of the already what we have naturally. So, you know, I don't know. You get me talking forever about this, Charles. I'll pause. I think I've answered that
No,
question.
no, 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 no problem. Actually, this is all some good stuff because I mean, like, in the process of the whole thing of teaching the youth for the future, what kind of impact are you looking for in doing this?
You know, I say that my bar is low in the sense that if if I can, if I so at Chapel Hill, for example, they allow me, limited access, to the school and to the children, and let's just say, I have 10 children I'm working with today. If one or two decide to go in the direction of cybersecurity or IT, that's a win. But so that's a low goal, on a low end. That's one of my goals. But on a high end, really, what we're building, me and Omar, is plans to have a pipeline from the third grade through senior year in high school. So we're talking about 10 years of experience, training experience that a student will have. We're starting this at Chapel Hill Elementary, and extension of that Chapel Hill Middle and Southwest DeKalb and Cedar Grove. Like I went to these are the schools I went to, and the dream is to expand, beyond that to other metro areas. I'm sorry, other districts, the schools in the metro area. We have, this is not just a dream. We have this. This is in progress. So now, coupled with the actual training that we'll provide, we also provide opportunities, um, far as mentorship, not just from me, from Side Three and my counterparts, but also from the NSA, from GBI, partnering with Air Force service members, so that these students can have real world scenarios, real world scenarios to build on, to learn on, and also so that these these organizations can have access to these students. I mean, what organization wouldn't want an 18-year-old that has been training 10 years on cybersecurity knowledge, and getting certifications and real world training for 10 years. So you're coming out of high school with 10 years of training experience versus a normal 18-year-old is trying to figure out, they may have a couple of years playing around with the computer. Now they want to go to college, go into the military and get more knowledge. No, these students, they already have 10 years of this knowledge.
Wow. And see, I think that right there puts them in the forefront to run with those other nations that are leading in this technology industry.
Oh yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there, Charles. I mean, because these are some of the things that they're doing in other countries. I mean, you go to certain countries, just I won't not call them out, but even like college programs, they have like hacking, and they have disciplines or concentrations on certain nations. Like for example, it might be a hacking or a penetration degree, and with a concentration in uh, United States resources. And then the top graduates will be repurposed to the military. So you're spot on. I mean, we're behind.
So, what inspired you to pursue a career in cybersecurity?
Uh, I kind of, honestly, I fell into it. I was I got out of the military, and I was a system administrator. I was a person that worked on Microsoft Windows computers and servers, repaired them, configured them, and quarterly we had in the organization, the Air Force organization I worked in, we had these scans reports, vulnerability scan reports that would come out, and we would have to. So basically, a vulnerability scan report is a report showing any weaknesses in the Windows computers. So we get these scan reports, and we have to fix them. Nobody on the team, I had a large team that was on. Nobody wanted to fix them. Nobody wanted to touch the security stuff. So I said, I'll do it, and I kind of liked it because it takes a really, like, you have to analyze. You're really looking at these reports, and you're going through all of these configurations, and you're fixing it. It could be tedious, but I kind of liked it. But what I really liked was that nobody else liked it, and so I understood enough about security at the time. Because at the time I got Security Plus and stuff at that time. That okay, there's money in this, so that really encouraged me. Okay, let me dig deeper. I'll be the go-to person on the team, and that's what really got me started.
So, can you describe a typical day in your role as a cybersecurity consultant?
Hmm, that was a good one. Let me think. Thankfully, there's a lot of wiggle room in that question. I mean, it every day differs, but so let me just describe one. Let me describe one that most people are probably familiar with. This past July, I believe it was July 19th. It was I woke up Friday morning, and it was find out that our systems were down. Um, we didn't know the magnitude, and then we began to determine, all of the systems in the organization that doing some consulting for. All of the systems are down. When we're talking about 4,500 systems. Kind of find out, like, oh no, this is across the world. So we're talking about the CrowdStrike outage.
Oh,
Right? You remember that?
yes, the one that killed one of my computers.
Okay. See, it's not hard to find someone that was affected by that outage. So that was an interesting day, and I wasn't, from a security standpoint. My focus was, okay, we're weakened, because and I don't understand at the moment at 7 a.m. how weak the organization is, but I do know that so many systems are down. And once we began repairing or getting back healthy, my second thought was, if I was a malicious actor or a hacker, this would be like Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthday rolled into one. It's like it's so much noise, so many organizations are focused on getting back healthy that they wouldn't be focused on monitoring for new attacks. So what I did was I worked with my team. I said, okay, we need to focus on all of our security tools and stay focused on them. Like, you don't have another job today, but monitor these security tools so that
Mhm.
we won't fall asleep at the wheel. Um, we had a contingency plan for provide doing an incident response if we determined there was a secondary attack. Uh, so that would consist of just coordinating. And probably listening to the audience members, like, that doesn't sound all that exciting, but for a cybersecurity person, that was like our Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Everything is on fire. We're making sure that nothing else happens on the network. If it does, we can detect it and fix it or address it in the minimum time possible. It was a stressful day, but it was a fun day.
So on that day, or with, let's say, some of the functions that you guys had to take in order to secure or to fix this,
hmm
are these some of the things that you're actually teaching your young students or someone that's following you guys or following you? Are these some of the things that you're teaching them and you're showing them how it works?
Yeah, yes. So we talk about the third graders. The best cybersecurity professional, in my opinion, is one that you got to understand the technology
Mm,
first. Everybody wants the cybersecurity stuff. That's the fun. That's the sexy stuff, right? All the hacking into the network and all of that stuff. Like, okay, you have to understand the technology first. So,
mhm,
uh, with the students, the third graders, we're teaching them from the ground up. We're teaching them about the hardware of the computers,
mhm,
and then after we teach them about the hardware, we introduce them into the applications, software piece of it, and going into, and all the while we're adding security. We're introducing security concepts, security principles into that. And to make it real, we bring in uh, real world scenarios
mhm.
that we think that might align or keep the interest of younger people. That's the challenge, right? What keeps the interest of, especially when you talk about third through sixth. Um, it's a little different than what keeps the interest of a 10th grader. But then, and then, so now moving into the fourth grade, we'll teach them more about network essentials, like
Mhm.
routers, switches, firewalls, and, like, as I mentioned, all the way we're associating it with real world, because that's what we want to get them into the habit of. Is you're not just focused on, okay, I need to fix this. Okay, how does this, me fixing this or this being broken, how is that associated with other things in the network or other things that I've seen or heard about that occurred in the world, not from an IT perspective.
So, what are some of the biggest challenges you face in cybersecurity?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, like, with organizations that we support, often funding, because cybersecurity, I believe, is one of those quiet, silent services that go on, in the background. Nothing's wrong, then you actually don't know. Sometimes decision makers, those people that have their hands on the wallet, so to speak, they might not be aware of like what's really going on or what the real threat is. So it's our job as, put it on the sales hat. It's our job to illustrate that to often non-IT people. So yeah,
Mhm.
budgeting, that's the biggest thing. Resources, allocate, convincing government entities to allocate money not only for tools like security tools, but also for additional resources like manning.
Mhm.
Because cybersecurity professionals, they aren't cheap, and the tools aren't cheap either. I mean, you might have a medium-sized organization, just one tool might cost you, 100,000 plus per year, and that's really on the low scale.
So, talking about IT, let's switch avenues.
Okay.
How did you get started in the IT field?
You said, how did I get started in IT?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting one. So, I told you I was in the Air Force, and I was at Del Rio, Texas. Nobody knows what Del Rio, Texas is. Not even people in Texas. It's so small. I mean, literally, I worked with a guy who was from San Antonio. It's only 2 hours away. Born and raised in San Antonio. He had no clue that Del Rio existed.
Oh,
So oh yeah. So while I was in processing to that base, that was my second base. I was trying to figure out how can I get out of this base. And someone told me, you're eligible to retrain because I was first. That was my first contract.
mhm.
So I logged into the Air Force personnel portal, and my objective was to identify the job that needed the most people. It could have probably been a firefighter. It just so happened to be IT. So I
Wow.
right, I clicked IT, and like I said, at the time I didn't even know how to cut and paste. So that I stumbled into IT. Honestly, by the grace of God.
Wow. So, tell us, what are the key skills required to succeed in the IT industry today?
Mm. Well, and this might transfer over to other career fields as well, but just being flexible. Because I talk to a lot of students coming out of college, and or some that are in college even, and they have these ideas of what they think they can get paid, uh, what type of jobs they're able to get. So when starting off, I would just say remain flexible and open minded. Uh, any starting point is a good starting point into the IT career field, because your starting point isn't where you're gonna stay. It's just a stepping stone to the next discipline. Like I said, I started off as a Windows person, then I went to doing routers and switches, then firewalls, and then I really got into what I've been doing now for the past 12 years. So, the information security. So, my advice would be remain flexible, first of all. Second, identify somebody that's in the career field that you can you can connect with, that can, be a start, a mentor, at least starting out. And you can do that by, simply going to LinkedIn. And, I do that sometimes. I'll go to LinkedIn, a resource that I'm looking for, and I'll just search for that keyword, like in this case, cybersecurity. And I'll look at the person, look at the picture, like, yeah, it looks like somebody I could talk to, and just reach out. That's very important, because I had many mentors, but one that stands out when I got out of the military, and if it wasn't for Gerard Johnson in Alabama, like, I want to be anywhere close to where I am now, because he showed me that getting certifications is simple. It's just like everything else, just steps, and then you execute. So I got that from having a mentor. So that's two things I recommend. Be flexible going into the career field. You know, it doesn't matter what job you start off with. Just start off with an IT job and
Yeah.
connect with a mentor, and then okay, I do have a third one. Begin working on a certification.
Do you think what made the difference in your learning when you got into the this arena, this industry, that you were actually able to relate to the person that looked just like you, that
Mhm.
was helping you to get to that place where you're trying to get to?
Charles, I never thought about that. I mean, I never thought that it's possible. Because Gerard, of course, he's a brother that's I guess he's about 8 years older than me, or maybe 6 years older. Um, it's quite possible because my experience prior to connecting with Gerard, um, I met him when I got out the military, so I had gone through 4 years of bumping around trying to figure out IT, and the people that I worked with, they I'm not gonna say that of course they didn't intentionally keep it to themselves, but they made it to me feel like okay, you have to be up here to get IT and to get these certifications. And they happen to be white. So I don't know if there's a connection right there. But Gerard, it, it probably was. That's probably something that was subconscious. I hadn't even pondered on until you proposed it just now.
So, so with this, because I mean, you guys are doing a lot of big things. Tell me, how do you transpose that and bring that down to the students that you're teaching at this
Mm.
moment?
You know, when I learn something, I have to simplify it in order for me to process it and learn it. That's what is occurring in my brain. So that's what I have in mind when I'm communicating with the students. Like I have a nephew, he's in college now, but he was one of the first young people, like when he was 16, that I was working with, and that was a that was a simpler transmission of information. 'Cause you think about a 16-year-old, they have certain they're just more mature and they used to learning. But it was a challenge, like, oh, a third grader. It's like like how do you teach a third grader IT?
Hmm.
That's what I said to myself.
Well, I think what's really interesting is that our young people, especially when it comes to this technology, they have this ability to adapt. They have this ability to just naturally just soak that up, and they move forward and they just process it.
Yes,
Have you seen a lot of that with your young students?
I have, Charles. So everything I described to you like was before I attempted to apply that information or transmit the information to the third graders. Like we build up these hurdles, where there isn't one. So yeah, when I start working with a third grader, I start realizing like, oh wow, really sometimes just from maybe television and stuff that they've come across, whether it's YouTube or TikTok and stuff, they have a point of reference often to associate with whatever I'm teach or attempting to teach them. That was surprising. I really I I underestimated them.
See, that's just a wonderful thing to hear, because when I think of, we have these young black kids that's in schools that you find so many of them that haven't had the challenge, to where, the things that's inside this noggin has just not been triggered yet. So when it's triggered, you know, I think that's when we should always push forward and we should give them a whole lot more of it, because I
Mm.
think the more they get, the better they're going to be at it. But also, it's like when they're just doing something that they like, that they like what they're doing.
Yes, and then you also know when you're boring them because kids will yawn, but that's my adults let me try to hold it back, like, no, but I appreciate that because that's my trigger. It's okay, let me figure out how to change this approach to change how I'm transmitting the information. So I appreciate that honesty that we lose as we get older, right? So, yeah.
Because I think the next time that you're actually going to have that opportunity, or one of these times that you're out there doing the mentorship at the school, I definitely would love to come out and capture that, and just post it on one of my channels, because I mean, this is something that's really interesting that I think people should actually see.
Oh,
And when you see, especially these smart young black kids, that's got all of this knowledge, and these things that it's not to exploit, but it's to add to the creation and the evolution of what we've got coming forward. Because we don't see a lot of that, and I think that's some things that we should see.
I agree, Charles. Consider that done. I mean, of course, that'll hopefully Principal Smith, she's on here listening. That's the principal at Chapel Hill Elementary, and Miss Natasha York. That's my person that she's been tremendous that I work with the
Hmm.
STEM program. Yes, let's do that. I would love to do that because I was just talking to Miss York this evening or this afternoon before I got on with you. We have some stuff, October Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so we had some fun stuff that we're putting together for the students at Chapel Hill Elementary.
That's excellent. I definitely want to be a part of that.
Oh yeah, consider that done.
Can you discuss a major project you worked on and the impact it had?
Let's think about this. Yes, yep. Air Force. Going back to 2012, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Of course, there's been other projects between then and now, but uh, the Air Force, oh, sorry, the military does a good job of keeping things uniform.
Right.
If you got, so we went through this. I was the lead, or at least my company, Side 3. We were the lead, and uh, migrating all of the Air Force firewalls across the world, um, active duty, whether it's guard or reserve, from one technology to the next.
Hmm.
And that was that was huge when I say across the world, literally all Air Force bases. So that was huge. And the result was, I was quite impressed with, meaning like the new firewall that we put in place detected things on the network that the previous firewall never detected. I'm talking about um, was just peer to peer sharing. You remember like the whole Napster and all this type of stuff. I mean, that's not supposed to be on anyone's network, and the previous security tools didn't detect this, but the new one that we played a part in installing, detected this across the board at just multiple sites across the world. So that's one that stands out.
So tell me, in the process of doing that, do you guys use SharePoint at all? Is SharePoint important in that process?
Yes, at the time it wasn't, SharePoint, because we're going back to 2012. So SharePoint, if I can recall, it wasn't a major player at the time, or yeah, right. But now, I mean, everything is. If you have a Microsoft, which most organizations are Microsoft shops, you have SharePoint that's connected to OneDrive. You know, that's where you
Mhm,
store your all your files and things on your computer,
mhm,
and an extension of that, Microsoft Teams.
mhm.
Yeah, so definitely.
You know, the agency I used to work in, we used to do a lot of that document share thing where everything would be uploaded into SharePoint. I hated that. I'm gonna tell you, I hated that.
Why?
It's accessible and it's easy to get to, so it's easy to do your part and just put it back after you save it and put it back. But the thing that I did not like about it, and tell me if I'm thinking about this in the wrong way,
Hmm.
is that when you getting something out of SharePoint, there's always the chance that one, either somebody don't save properly,
Hmm.
or in the midst of, let's say, somebody has brought back a bug in some shape, form, or fashion, it screws up all the documents.
Yes. Yeah. No. They gotten better far as version control. You're right to
Hmm.
be a little suspicious, you know, SharePoint, because SharePoint, um, just get into security a little bit. The default permissions, they're
Right, right.
they're weak. The default permission. So
Mhm.
that requires, you know, a security person or identity access manager to go in there and modify the permissions to, you know, to make them stronger. If that doesn't occur, then you have weak permissions. And like you said, you're sharing, you're uploading files. You know, are
Mhm.
we uploading files with social security numbers? You know,
Exactly.
so now you see the risk gets even greater that okay, we're doing something that can cause it can cause damage to the organization or the individuals.
Hmm. So let's move down here a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your mentorship.
Okay.
What motivated you to become a mentor?
Um, it just I I like the light to see the light bulb come on. You know that, and again going back to my experience when I first got into IT, it was a challenge, especially like the first 2 years.
Hmm.
So I just said to myself, if I ever get this, I'm gonna make sure that anybody that wants to know this, you know, I'm not gonna leave them behind. And you know, how you say stuff when you're going through some pain, you know, but you might you might
Yes,
not
sir.
might not follow through with that, but for some reason, you know, thank God it just kind of stayed in me, and it's the coolest thing to, you know, to this day. Like it's, you know, people tell me thank you, I'm like it's the fun stuff. I wish that, you know, I can do the mentoring, you know, really full time versus the business side, like the consulting and stuff, because I mean that's fun too often, but the mentorship, that's the fun stuff.
Mm. So, can you tell us how do you approach mentoring someone new to the cybersecurity field?
Yeah, okay, I definitely can. So I have example. This wonderful young sister, Kamaya. Hopefully, she might be on the call now. You know, Kamaya has you know, uh, some quality assurance background, and she was introduced to me as a person that, you know, wanted to learn cybersecurity. So, you know, the first thing that I do, if I'm being introduced by a third party, I'll just give the third, you know, tell the person and give the individual my phone number. Um, you know, ask them to, you know, send me a text and we'll coordinate a time to talk. So really, what I'm actually doing in that process is, you know, because there's been, you know, plenty of people that, oh yeah, I'm interested in cybersecurity. Where, you know, kind of measuring out, well, how interested are you? You know, so it's different if I call you, but if you actually text me to set up a time to talk, all right, that's the first level, you know, understanding that okay, you're interested. um, it's at least somewhat, not it's not a low level interest. So once I get on the phone with them, I get an idea of their background and what they're seeking to do, and then I provide them. Normally, I'll start off with, okay, you want to get into cybersecurity, let's prepare for a certification. Normally, that certification is a security plus certification. So I'll put together, based on their schedule, like a customized, uh, like a lesson plan, and I'll send it to them via email. I'll let them know, okay, I'll go over it with them, and then I'll let them know that, I'll check weekly. We're going to do weekly check-ins,
Okay.
and and the goal is to go over, whatever we have outlined in the lesson plan for that previous week. Chance for you to ask any questions, anything like that. But really, it's really on the person. I just give them like the blueprint, and like Kamaya. I mean, she went through and she completed it. She stayed on she stayed on task. She didn't fall off. Like I have another person that I did the same thing to, older lady, and every now and then I get a text from her. I'm still studying. I tell you, Charles, it's been about a year and a half. It doesn't take that long to get a computer
You
plus.
said-
No, it takes 6 to 8 weeks. I know what that's a goal for you, not you.
you would.
So
So is that I guess that's the cue that she's really not ready for this.
right, not now. But I like the way you said that though, because me and my cousin Ronell, we were talking about it, and we were talking about how, yeah, the person might not be ready right now.
Hmm.
6 months from now, a year from now, might be that time. We can't take for granted. Like my father says, when our time comes, we can't take it for granted, because we don't know when the next time that motivation will come, if there's a next time.
Exactly. Can you share a success story from your mentoring experience?
I can. Let me think about, because it's a few success stories. One that comes to mind, going back, like one of my first opportunities that I was given. I had opportunity to work with Alabama State University back in 2000, or first back in 2011, and
Hmm.
gentleman, Doctor. Oh my goodness, I forgot the gentleman's name now. But he was over the IT, or the ITSM program, IT security manager program. I'm sorry, IT management course, and it was an Indian fellow, and he approached me, to work with their students to, get them prepared for Security Plus. So there was one brother, Roderick, and he's a South Side guy, from College Park. So I was partial to for Roderick to begin with, but he was just committed, and at the time, like I said, it was 2011. Roger is one of those cases where, a reminder not to judge a book by its cover. Roger had tattoos all on his neck.
Hmm.
When I tell you, out of the 25 students in there, he
Hmm.
was the sharpest, most attentive. He sat in the front. He didn't waver at all. And, he got his Security Plus. He took that. He was a senior at the time. Oh yeah, definitely. And four other people got their Security Plus. Basically, those that followed through and actually finished what we suggested, they got their Security Plus. But Roderick took it and graduated. And now keep in mind, those students at Alabama State, and I've had the same thing with Savannah State. A lot of times these students, and they don't feel like somebody's going to hire them. Like a
Hmm.
confidence thing for some reason is there or in question, but not Roderick. He finished. He graduated from college. He worked with tech systems and landed a position in Florida.
Hmm.
Since then he's been. I mean, that was my goodness, 13 years ago. I mean, he's a network engineer now.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, he's. I mean, and that's just one. Like when you said, I hadn't thought about it. Up until present day, like I mentioned, Kamaya. Kamaya's in the process of working on getting working with some state agencies, counterparts at one of the agencies for a security analyst position. Like we can hopefully get through my company, Side Three Security, and work in support of one of the state agencies in Georgia. But Kamaya wouldn't have been in that situation if she be able to position herself to have that interview, to have that discussion, if she didn't take the initiative to get Security Plus. Right now, my cousin, he has no IT experience, no practical hands-on IT experience, not until within the last 6 months, and he just got his A plus. When I say, that's phenomenal. My cousin Ronell, because he doesn't have any IT experience, but he took the lesson plans and he applied them, and through everything, he successfully passed 2 exams and got his A plus certification. Now he's in the process of studying for his first cloud certification, Microsoft Azure cloud certification.
Oh wow. So do these certifications, is it like your company itself can sponsor
Hmm.
these certification courses to where once they get them, it's certified through them, but you're also certifying them as well?
Oh well, I see how you broke that down. So yes, we Side Three helps the students or the personnel that like Kamaya, for example. Like we'll get the study material, we'll
Mhm,
provide that material for them. We'll even work with them, in terms of if any assistance is needed in scheduling. I mean, paying for the exam, paying for the certification exam, and once they take the exam and get the certification, now they're certified.
mhm,
We then work with, based on our contacts and some of the contracts we have, work to place them in a position. But I think that one, so everything was correct. I think the one piece that you mentioned about Side Three, like us certifying them,
mhm,
we don't have a stake in terms of certifying. Yeah, that
mhm,
would be whatever uh, like exam entity that they went through, like Microsoft, for example.
mhm.
They're the certifying body.
Okay.
Hmm.
So what qualities do you believe are essential in a good mentor?
I think patience. Well, no, let's scratch patience because that might just be our default. Just patience. Anybody doing anything needs to be patient. Perhaps being a good listener. That's one of the good attributes.
Mhm,
Because especially uh, I have to catch myself because often people that are like in my position, I talk a lot.
mhm.
And it's so annoying when you hear people that talk a lot and you get the impression they just like to hear themselves talk. Never want to be that person, you know. So I aspire to be a good listener, and and I think it's benefit to being a good listener because what are you really saying? Like, if you don't understand something, what are you really telling me? So I think
Mhm,
that's one of the key attributes to a good mentor, and being and having some understanding because you know it's almost like some basketball players can't be good coaches
mhm,
because all right, yeah, you're this person that knows score 20 points a game and stuff, but you don't remember when you couldn't even dribble the ball with your left hand, you know, or dribble the ball without looking at it. So I have to remember that, remember those times where I didn't know anything. That's sometimes how people are coming to you.
Hmm.
You know, they may be coming with, they may be nervous when you're working with them through some stuff. Having that understanding is very important because everyone isn't. I've seen it. You probably seen it. Everyone isn't a good uh, teacher.
Definitely not.
they might be.
Definitely not.
They might be an excellent, you know, executioner or
Yes.
practitioner. You know, but yeah, not a good teacher. Yeah.
I think some people need to learn and understand, especially while listening now, is that just because you perfected what it was that you did, please don't go back and tell me you're going to teach somebody and you short patient and you mad, you mean, and it's just like, I don't understand why you're not getting it. You ain't teaching it.
That's right. You have to blame the teacher.
Then you cursing the folks out, making them nervous. I mean, they can't handle that.
No, you see that. Like I talked to my sister, she's been a librarian in school system for many years, and we talk about how, or she, you know, reminds me of how, like when students don't get something, or they're not learning, the teacher, you know, points blame, or they're not getting it. But you really need to look at yourself first. You know, can you deliver, transmit what you're trying to communicate better? That's a
Well,
possibility.
I'm gonna tell you, you made a great analogy when you were talking about the sports analogy, because there have been several players, former professional players that thrive, and they try to call themselves coaching.
Oh yeah,
And out of this is not a tear down, but give you example. Remember when the Lakers hired Magic Johnson to coach
I was
twice?
I was
He
thinking the same thing.
he failed twice, and he got 2 years both times. They're like, you out of here.
Oh yeah, we all knew, had a feeling what that was about.
Right. I mean, because he was an excellent player, but he just didn't have it in here to be able to really have that camaraderie to bring all those players together so they could actually gel and play like Showtime when he played.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing to overcome. I mean, and then too, probably what he was experiencing. Sometimes I think that generational gap too. You know, you and I can experience it. I think you and I were talking about this a while ago. Can't remember when we were talking about, and this isn't a knock, but so I think the average person's attention span is shorter now
Yeah.
than, you know, when we were younger.
Hmm.
And again, and so now we're talking about the students. That's something that I have to take into consideration. My sister helps me out a lot because she's, you know, a trained teacher, you know, understanding the different levels of attention span. Um, but that comes down to what we're trained on. You're trained on these YouTube shorts, these TikTok videos. All the songs are shorter. I dare somebody to find a song that's more than 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Hmm.
So all these things train our attention span. We have to understand this when you know, dealing with another generation. You know, like you said, like people like Magic and stuff, they aren't able to adjust. It was like this when I was playing. Well, it's different.
Exactly. Um, how do you tailor your mentoring approach to different individuals, or do you?
Yes, I do. You know, because just measuring. That's why I like working one on one with the students
Hmm.
because, you know, versus working like right now. We might. I was talking to Miss York. We might do some things just because of time and availability. Um, students and myself do something where it's a larger group. But
Mhm.
I do like working more on an individual level or one-on-one level because that allows me the opportunity to dial into uh, the students' learning ability.
Mhm.
Um, and I pause when I say it that way. Their current learning ability. You know, yeah. So that's the best way to answer that.
Right. Um, how do you handle the fast-paced changes in technology within your work?
Yeah, staying just keeping my ear to what's going on. There's some podcasts. You know, you and I were talking earlier. Like I I just go ahead and say that I could be a lazy reader. You know,
Mhm.
it's funny. Like I'll read through a 30-page IT standard or compliance or something like that. But when it comes to receiving knowledge, like what we're talking about, staying abreast to what's going on in IT.
Mhm.
I have some subscriptions to some channels that I'll listen when I'm driving. I have a cybersecurity news
Mhm.
feed that I listen to. I try to listen to every morning, and it just tells what certain like cybersecurity news going on around the world.
Mm.
So that's one way that I plug in to the changes. But
Mhm.
then also you just have to really be aware that something that I learned 6 months ago might not be applicable to whatever we're talking about today
Mhm.
in IT. Something that I learned 3 years ago is a good possibility that is not applicable. I cannot apply it to what is being presented to me today. You know
Mhm.
that you have to remember that as an IT professional.
So, what role does collaboration play in your IT projects?
It's major, especially when going back to what we were talking about when I mentioned, lack of resources.
Mhm.
You have to get creative thinking about these organizations that we support. Like one of the organizations that we're supporting for the state of Georgia, you know, every aspect of an organization just about has IT associated with it. So
Mhm.
that gives me the opportunity to collaborate, to think about. I don't have a. I'm low in resources, but every office has an IT aspect. Okay, well, let me identify who I can work with in each office and leverage that manpower to accomplish, some IT practices or activities I need to accomplish.
How do you stay updated with the latest cybersecurity threats and trends?
Oh, one like I mentioned, just the cybersecurity news feeds that I have. Another way is just staying connected to other cybersecurity professionals. That's the best way because if I don't identify it or hear it in the news feeds that I'm paying attention to, I'm accessing, it'll come up in discussion. I mean, it's not 100%, but you do catch the majority of the important things, but not everything.
Can you share a memorable experience where you successfully thwarted a cyber attack?
Oh, let me think about that. Because often you don't even know that you avoided it. You just know that you weren't hit. Let me think about that. Think about how, 'cause I know I have one. Oh, okay. I got one that's kind of recent. Of course, I'm not gonna name the organization,
Mhm.
but this organization has. You remember we mentioned the outage, CrowdStrike outage.
Mhm.
Well, CrowdStrike is a really excellent tool. It does a better job than any other EDR antivirus solution that I've seen. So going back to your question, it's happened just I think it was just a few weeks ago where it was a facility that we support, and CrowdStrike detected three viruses, um, like almost simultaneously attempting to and be installed on three separate computers at this facility.
Mm.
Right. And now, but it was blocked and reported by CrowdStrike. So, that's a simple one. There's plenty of them like that, in terms of I can tell CrowdStrike. But what was significant for me about that was that there's many there's there asset management is very important. Like people don't look at that as security, but
Mhm.
just knowing where your assets are and what's installed on them is
Mhm.
important, because if I wasn't confident that all of our computers have uh, CrowdStrike installed on them, you just think about it. I would have never known about that virus. That virus would have never been blocked, more than likely. It would have
Mhm.
spread throughout the network, and we would have had a bigger problem on our hands.
All righty. We're gonna take some time here. We're gonna jump aside and we're gonna play a word game.
Uh-oh. All right.
I'm gonna ask you a word. I'm gonna give you a word, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear this word.
First thing.
First thing.
All right.
Okay. We got 10 of
Okay. This will get me in trouble. I'm ready.
them. Mentor,
Commitment.
kids,
First thing actually sounds corny, but future. That's what came to my mind.
Georgia,
Home.
military,
Uh Stepping stone.
security.
Essential.
Wow. Um, war,
Inevitable. I don't know if that's right.
call,
What was that again, sir?
call, like
Call?
call,
Oh, phone call. Communication.
teach,
Opportunity.
student,
Valuable.
computer.
Resource.
Okay.
I don't
Of
know.
all those words, which word stood out the most to you as your most important word?
Hmm. I said valuable. I can't remember which question I associated, or which word I associated that attribute to, though.
That was student.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. And so, what's the valuable part of the student?
Now let me pause and let me think on that one, because again, I mean, it was just knee jerk reaction. But they say it sounds so corny now, like the children are our future and all of that stuff. But
Mhm.
it's the truth. Like at some point we're gonna need to step aside, and you think about these people that what you see in elementary school. People might drop out in high school, unfortunately, but you don't run into too many elementary school dropouts. So these students that in elementary school, these that's the future right there.
Right.
um we educate them, but it's so much more to just this cybersecurity, teaching them this. I deal with talking to Miss York and people at the elementary schools. These students are dealing with PTSD that they need to be able to work through.
Hmm.
You know that they need to be able to work through that. How can you expect? Yeah, hope by the grace of God you come out a good productive human, but people that go off to war for a year and come back with PTSD, they can't. cope sometimes in society. How do you expect a child to? And we're teaching them all this stuff, but yeah, don't get me started on that. It might be another conversation, Charles. But
So I mean, so would the overall um word that would probably surmise that, would that be legacy? Does it sound like that's a legacy?
I don't know. I don't know because when you say legacy, like I think about maybe that I apply that to myself, and then
Mhm.
I make it feel like it's something special I'm doing, or it's about me, and like that's not how I feel or even want to feel. It's just and maybe that's my take on legacy, and that's not your intention or the true definition of it. I
Mhm.
can say what I think about it is, I'm sorry, it'll be a win if all these students from South DeKalb County and just Metro Atlanta, all like this pipeline actually came to fruition that was built, and all these students know technology, know cybersecurity, know how to apply it, and they have these connections with these other vendors, these other companies, these government organizations, and it's just an ecosystem that's built. Like 10, 15 years from now,
Mhm.
that that spells success. And who knows, I might be thinking too small just with that. I,
Well, I don't think you're thinking too small at all. I think once you strategically plan like you're doing, I mean, it's bound to get to where the ultimate look or appearance that's supposed to be there, and that's quality, there's quantity, but there's also expansion.
hmm,
Because I think when you set when you set the standard like how you and your guys are doing there at CY3, Side 3, I'm sorry, if that's what you said, Side 3.
yes, sir.
Okay. So what you're doing at Side 3, I mean, from just from this point right here, I mean, it sounds like you guys have a really good plan in place, and that what you're doing is more than just foundational. Because I think to go back and to bring third, fourth, and fifth graders and so forth into the fold of the IT field itself, cybersecurity field itself, knowing the technicalities, but then also hitting that little trigger in that little brain that's like this big, you know, and they're like just soaking it up, and they're like just doing what's supposed to be done. And it's like, these are the kids that I think here in Metro Atlanta or in the state of Georgia, period, should
Hmm.
be thinking about programs like you're running with your school that you went to. It's some things that people should be looking at, because that in itself sets a whole new standard.
Oh
And
yeah.
nobody can say that you didn't reach back, because your reaching back is going to prove very much so very valuable.
I hope so, God willing. Yeah, I agree with you. I encourage anybody that's has the ability to do this or coordinate. You know, bring that to your area as well, or even if you're in Atlanta, uh, reach out to me. If you have a school that your students or somebody's going to, or that you work at, and you want to see this type of thing brought to your school, let's talk about it. 'Cause I would love to.
Yep. So we have a few more questions here.
Okay.
And can you tell me, what are the most common vulnerabilities you encounter in your work?
First thing that comes to mind. So I classify them, break them down into network and then system vulnerabilities. So system vulnerabilities would be like our laptop, or server. Um, Going down to the laptop level, uh, because that's what we most commonly use. That's in our hand most of the time. We have it at home. One of the most common vulnerabilities, is just simply not patching not patching your computer uh frequently. So
Hmm.
Well, you probably all see it, right? Folks probably right now can look down in a little tray, on the Windows computer and see a little uh, exclamation point says Windows security actions required.
Mm-hmm.
It's just patches. But see what those patches are, they're Microsoft's answer to fix some vulnerabilities in the code.
Ah.
And if they're not fixed,
Mm-hmm.
then hackers can leverage that vulnerability or weakness in the code.
And
And
break down the wall.
oh, absolutely. Uh,
Wow.
just that simple.
Now, I didn't know that kind of like process or that way what was how that worked until
Mhm.
you just explained that and it automatically told me this. This is how they get in.
See?
Wow. That's something.
Oh, yeah. It goes back to what we were saying. Black people are naturally excellent cybersecurity professionals. This is how it was presented.
Can't take that away.
Look, when it clicked as soon as it was relayed to you that way, boom, you saw it.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So how do you approach risk assessment for different organizations?
Oh man, you saving the good stuff for last, Charles. I like this. So, so for those out there, a risk assessment is simply an assessment where our company Side Three would go into an organization and analyze the organization in its entirety to determine where they align. Normally, it's with IT regulation.
Mhm,
So let's talk about medical entities. Like say a hospital, they have to align with HIPAA security rule. That's the federal IT regulation.
mhm,
So once contracted by, so let's just say Grady, for example, once contracted by Grady to do their risk assessment,
mhm,
our security engineers are going to the organization. We'll set up a meeting with key stakeholders and start off with a questionnaire just to get an understanding of their network and their practices
mhm.
before even looking at the technology. Then next step we'll do what is called we'll do a scan of the network, of basically a vulnerability scan, but it's a scan to see what's on the network.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then we'll go from there. Start we'll segment it or we'll segment it into, like I mentioned, network and then systems, and we'll do start getting into more granular activities, per device type. But but it all goes back to the regulation that you have to align with. Um, every organization has some regulation or standard that they have to align with. So it's not me saying that it needs to be configured this way. I'm just echoing whatever regulation that you have to align with. Taking that approach is going to keep organization and their stakeholders secure, but it's also going to help them ensure that they're doing what's required by regulation, and that's the big thing, keeping them from being, from fines, job loss, anything. Because at the end of the day, security is going to be compromised. We're all going to be compromised.
At
All
some
of
time.
it.
At
it's,
some time.
it's about minimizing the risk
Mhm,
of being compromised for an organization, or if we're talking about individuals, and also incident response. How
mhm.
fast we can respond to an incident will can often make the difference between something or minor uh, incident or major breach.
Let me ask you this because I know that this is like a catch-all question for pretty much everybody that works with a computer.
Okay.
I have my organization and I'm constantly putting out, to my employees, be aware of, be careful of phishing, all this kind of stuff with the email situation and so forth.
Hmm.
And so, as constant as you do it, let's say if it's once or twice a week, why is it that you always have this one individual that does not listen and is always the person that compromises the system? How do we prevent that?
Mm. How do we prevent? Let me just say how. Let me answer approach. How do we minimize the risk even further?
Yes.
Is through training. It's through. So it sounds like you made some efforts to do some type of awareness training, but
Right.
it's just not sticking for some employees. It's
Mm,
possible that now it's about accountability, because some just don't click. Oh, it's another email from Ahmad, But if you're tracking it,
right.
and at the end, so what we have, that's another thing I really like is cybersecurity training. We have campaigns that might
Mhm,
go from, let's say, October 1st to December 1st. The cybersecurity campaign, I'm sending out 5 emails, training emails to all the employees. The tool that I use is actually tracking whether the employee completes it or not. You can't fast forward through it either.
mhm.
So if you do not complete it by the end of this campaign by December 1st, you're going to be held accountable.
Yep.
So, and nothing else, that will increase the chance of that person that still clicks on the email. You know that he's going through the training that's telling him how to recognize the emails.
Mhm,
And and even after that, if he still clicks on it, okay, now it's time to do some remedial training.
mhm.
You know,
No, because I know, like, at a lot of these major Fortune 500 companies, see, because they have so much resource, they can get rid of people like that, and
Mhm.
that's what's starting to happen. Is because I think when systems get compromised like that, and you get some of them worms, they get up in there, and it probably take months, maybe a year, to get all that stuff out.
oh, absolutely, Charles. And then, and the scarier part to me is those that get those worms or viruses that get in the system and aren't detected. Like
Mhm,
these cyber criminals, they're pretty. Sometimes they're impressive. Like there've been cases that a cyber criminal will get into your network
mhm.
and remain there, just collecting information and taking it back home, and it'll even patch. This is happening. They'll even patch your network. They'll patch your servers just so they'll actually go in and patch your servers just so you won't detect anything wrong. Like I don't want so yeah, you're right. I mean that's the biggest thing is that anybody that you can have all the tools in the world on your network,
Mhm.
but if you have a user that clicks on a link in the email,
Yes.
everything was for nothing.
Yeah. And so, it's like, and I hear of this a lot from more than one place. And I'm like, I know when people have gone to that, there's a reason why.
Hmm.
But it just seems like when it's the same person, I don't know. I'm just finding that to be more than just a coincidence.
Yeah, something had to be done because at that point, because we had situations like this in organizations I worked in, and my recommendation, I don't take it lightly, risking or talking about terminating anybody, but
Mhm.
like you said, 2 3 times, like back to back to back months. Now you're actually becoming a risk, a liability to
Mhm.
the health of this organization.
Exactly.
Something
Exactly.
has to be done.
So, what advice would you give to businesses looking to improve their cybersecurity posture?
Uh, First thing on the lines of what we're talking about, have a establish a cybersecurity training program. I've been saying this for at least 17 years. That's the least expensive first step to take, is uh, to apply, develop a cybersecurity training, cybersecurity awareness program. You have to, because if you, it's about the knowledge, making the employees most knowledgeable. And the second thing, what I would recommend is have a security professional.
Mhm.
If you don't have the budget to actually hire, because small businesses might be listening, you don't have the ability to hire a cybersecurity professional like full time. At
Mhm.
least reach out to companies like mine, or other company, and not just my company, and you can at least hire a consultant for a certain amount of hours to first analyze your network and
Mhm.
your security posture. At least you have someone paying attention or taking care of your network. So, cybersecurity training program, establish that. Two, hire a cybersecurity resource. If you can't do that, three, at least hire a consultant to come on for X amount of hours periodically throughout the year.
So, how do you balance the need for security with the need for usability in IT systems?
Oh, that's a cold question, Charles. Okay, let me dial into what you just said. Okay. You caught me off guard. So how do you balance security with, like,
And
basic?
that's the need for security with the need for usability in IT systems.
That's something every day. There's a saying in information security or cybersecurity, is that security can security will slow down
Mhm.
business, but it can never stop business or compromise the mission. So
Mhm.
that's the first check that all security people have to measure is, am I slowing down or compromising the mission applying the security? If so, I need to go back and assess what I'm recommending. Um, the second thing is staying dialed into and connected with the stakeholders.
Mhm.
One thing this gentleman gave me when I was younger, um, is that security professionals, we only make suggestions. We never dictate policy.
Mhm.
I don't have the ability, or do I try to dictate anything. I make suggestions. I could tell you, Charles, it's a good idea. I really highly recommend that you have a password for all of your accounts. You could tell me, I don't want to do that. I was like, hey, my job, let's get this in writing. Hey, my job is to recommend. I mean, of course, you're going to do a password, but even that,
Mhm.
that's, my job is only to suggest. So,
Mhm.
and then the third thing that I mentioned is in terms of balancing, like what you described, the cybersecurity and usability or operational, OPSEC, is having having a backup, having a contingency plan. Things are
Mm.
going to go wrong. That's a given. Mentally, let's lean into that. Things are going to go wrong. Viruses are going to happen. Breaches may even happen. Systems are going to go down. But let's have a contingency plan. And in having that contingency plan, we have to identify our key resources that are required to maintain operations.
Ooh, you just read my mind because I'm like, that's all operations. And when it comes to operations, operations is not just flat what it's supposed to be. You
Mhm.
need to have like maybe five, six contingency plans because you never know what may jump in place, especially when you're doing something like what you're doing. You
Mhm.
never know what's going to happen.
You never know. You never know. I mean, we were just talking about, um, we heard about like the ports that are closing down. All right, so we understand that it's supply and demand, with the resources coming in, but then couple that with these storms that are looming, in the Atlantic Ocean. What does that have to do with cybersecurity? Well, if systems go down or you can't access them because of power, like we saw within the last few days, we're talking about availability. Remember, I mentioned three principles of cybersecurity. One of them is availability. That was the
Mhm.
principle. So for sites that are not available, we have to have a contingency plan. How are we going to continue to do support the mission or continue the mission? Just because servers are down, the power's down, the mission still must go on. So we have to have a contingency plan. So
Yes, sir.
that's the third thing I recommend. But then not just having a contingency plan, testing
Mhm.
periodically. It might be twice a year testing that contingency plan.
And can you tell us what are some emerging technologies in cybersecurity that you are excited about?
Like many people, it's artificial intelligence. Whether we're talking about machine learning or generative AI, that's what I'm excited about. And it's exciting to me, of course, like the just the technology itself that most of us don't trust. 'Cause we grew up, especially those that grew up in like the Terminator, the Terminator era. But what's also cool about it is I just came from a conference I was telling you a couple weeks ago. I mean, we're talking about 2,000 CIOs and CISOs, so like a bunch of big brains, and we still don't have some good answers to combating AI threats. Like, have you heard of You might have heard of deep fakes, like where somebody could take the likeness of my voice
Mhm.
and make a call to you.
Yep.
Sounds just like me. If I called you right now, Charles, asking you I need $100,000, you would give that to me on the strength of it being me, right?
Yes. Yes. That knowing that it's you because it sounds like you.
There we go. But it's not me. So
Hmm.
how do you combat that? There's not a security tool in place to combat deep fake. So now we go back to what some people say is like low tech, you know, having a passphrase. This is what I tell all my family. We got a passphrase. So if somebody calls sounding like me wanting $100,000, okay, they need to tell you the passphrase.
Hmm.
We don't have, my point is, there's not a technology in place to combat some of these AI um, threats, which is kind of, it's scary and kind of cool at the same time.
And one last question here.
Hmm.
Can you please tell our audience, those especially wanting to get into cybersecurity, and he may even want to come and ask you about some opportunities and so forth? Tell them what is it that you're looking for and what you expect, when it comes to doing work in cybersecurity.
I got you. I appreciate that. Looking for somebody, people that are committed, committed to being, that are committed to being a student of IT. Like I know, like my cousin and my sister, they're on here. Like we talk about it all the time. IT will give you as much as you put in it. So you have to, if you're committed to being a student, like when it turned over for me was when I was actually committed to leaving work and coming home and putting in 2 to 3 hours on studying. So that's what I look for is if you're committed to being a student of IT, there's no excuses about things. We're human, so we're not robots. So it's understandable. Uh, if you come to me and life things get in the way, hey, we'll work through that. But just be committed to being a student. Commit to being uh, doing what you say you're gonna do when you're gonna do it. If you can't do that, let me know. Let anyone know that you communicate that you deal with, and that's it.
Mhm,
Come as you are.
mhm. Well, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to bless us with your presence and let us know the things that you're doing with the little ones. And again, I definitely am looking forward to and hope that I can get the opportunity to see you guys in action with these little ones, because those are some things that I really would love to get out for people to see. Because that actually, as I think about that, that's very exciting to me,
Oh,
because that does a lot of things, and it says a lot of things as well. Because a lot of times people that look like you and I are short-sighted for the wrong reason. But
yes.
when you can actually perform and do the work that you're more than capable of doing,
Hmm.
sometimes when people look at the book and they say, "Oh, that something's wrong with that," when they look at the cover, look, if you don't see it, somebody else will.
Oh yeah.
You
And
know,
I'm with you. And
and
we, oh, go ahead, Charles. Finish that. You laying some good stuff out.
I'm just saying, because if they don't see it, somebody else will. But also, if they're like sitting there where they feel like they're like not able or not willing to extend that opportunity, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of places, because as long as there's a platform like America in Black and White, those
Hmm.
little kids, as they're growing older and older and older and maturing over time, that's the purpose of actually establishing the connections within communities, because
Hmm.
that's what we're here for. We'll help connect
That's right.
them.
That's right.
It'll happen one way or the other.
That's right. That I'm gonna embrace those powerful words you left us with, Charles. I really appreciate the opportunity that you given me to come on here, and definitely we're gonna do that with the students at Chapel Hill. I'm excited about that. I'm gonna be talking to Miss York tomorrow morning, so I'm gonna mention that to her. So don't be surprised you hear from me very soon about that.
Yes, sir. And for those of you that are out there watching on the YouTube channel, I'm asking if you would please hit the subscription button as well as the notifications button that's right next to it. So you are able to catch each and every show. You're able to go back and watch those shows when you want to. And just please, if you got comments for us, please leave us some comments. We love feedback, because we're all only trying to do one thing: we want to get better. So I'd like to thank you guys for spending some time with us this evening. We will be back tomorrow evening for another great episode. And to all of you, thank you again, and you all have a great day. Thank you